Hello, all. Thank you so much for showing so much love and support for this series. And I'm so happy to see you all getting excited to learn AWS. So, without any further delay, let's get started with this video. So, in this video, we're going to learn about cloud computing, and I'll be covering the following topics, that is, what is cloud computing? Who uses cloud computing? What are the benefits of cloud computing? Types of cloud computing, and cloud computing models. Let's start with the first question, that is, what is cloud computing? So, cloud computing is the on demand delivery of IT resources over the internet with pay as you go pricing. Instead of buying, owning, and maintaining physical data centers and servers, you can access technology service such as computing power, storage, and databases on a as needed basis from a cloud provider like Amazon Web Services. So, in this definition, there are few things that we need to understand. First thing is on demand delivery of IT resources. What does that mean? So, IT resources, as you know, are the network devices or servers or computing and the database and storage devices. So, these are known as the IT resources. This definition says that these IT resources will get delivered to you based on your demand, meaning when you have a demand for an IT resource such as server or a compute or storage, you can just go to a cloud service provider and you can ask for that service and you can use it. Now, next it says that cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet, which means all these IT resources will be provided to you over internet and not like a physical entity that is sitting around at your home or at your office. It is not going to be like that. All these resources are going to be available only on the internet, which means that somewhere in the world some database or data center is there, but you are using that service via the internet. Now next it says that this is a pay as you go pricing model. In my previous video also, I gave an overview of what this pricing model is. So pay-as-you-go pricing means that you only have to pay for the resources which you are consuming, which means that once you're done with the service, once your work is done, you can either delete that service or you can simply give it back to the cloud service provider. You don't have to think about how to maintain that service when you're not using, how, where to store it, where to put it. All these things will be handled by the cloud service provider. You don't have to think about it and you don't have to pay for it even. So this is the pay as you go pricing model. Now earlier what organizations used to do was they had to maintain all these IT resources by themselves. They had to create their own data centers. They had to train their staff to run those data centers and maintain those servers and store the data and everything on their own. Now, obviously, it would add an extra burden to the organization. So, with cloud computing and with the pay as you go pricing, organizations benefited a lot. They didn't have to think about buying those physical servers on in the data centers. They didn't have to think about creating their own or maintaining their own data centers or databases. So, cloud computing helped them to reduce their overall cost of the infrastructure and it really benefited them. Now, let me give you an analogy of how to think about cloud computing. So, think it in a way of a house rent model. What I mean by that is, so suppose you live in Delhi, but you got a job in Bangalore. Now, for a living, to stay in Bangalore, obviously you would need a house, right? But and suppose you do have a budget to build a house, your own house in Bangalore, but would you do that for yourself? To build a house in a different city, or suppose you got a job in different country in US or Europe, then would you want to build a house in that city unless you're in a real estate business? So of course you would not want to do that. And there are various reasons. One, you're not sure about how long you're going to stay in that city, right? And second, you are mostly going to work 9 to 5 in your office, and during that time no one is actually using that house, right? So obviously no one would want to do that. Now what is the solution? Generally what people do is they go to the other city and they look for an apartment which they can have on rent, right? They would go to the landlord who has actually built that house or the apartment for selling purpose, and they do all the maintenance of those houses or those apartments. And the people like us, they would go to the landlords and ask for having an apartment for which they would have to pay only for a particular period of time. Now, in a similar way, cloud computing works. Think about data centers as the apartments or the house. Traditionally, organizations used to have their own data centers and spend a huge amount of money in building and maintaining them. Now, when cloud computing came, it gave the benefit to the organization where they don't have to build it. They would just go to the cloud service provider, which is the landlord, who has actually built those data centers, and they would ask for those services for a particular period of time with pay as you go pricing, which means they would only pay for that particular amount of time which they are consuming it. So this technology is kind of revolutionizing the traditional way of how IT used to work. Now, with cloud computing, organizations can access their IT resources on demand, which means whenever they have a demand of a storage or a network device, they could just go to the cloud service provider such as AWS or GCP, and they can just buy that resource for some period of time for which they have that demand, and then they can pay for it for that limited period of time. So which is a great deal for the organizations, right? So this is how cloud computing is kind of helping the IT industry and evolving the IT industry in a better way. Now, next is who is using cloud computing? Organizations of every type are using cloud computing. For example, you can see healthcare industries are using cloud computing to develop their personalized treatment for patients. Financial services are using their cloud computing to, power real-time fraud detection and prevention. And video game makers are using cloud to deliver online games to millions of players around the world. So you can see and understand that cloud computing is kind of completely changing the IT industry, and currently IT industry is moving towards cloud computing and migrating from their traditional infrastructure towards cloud computing, because it is a great win-win kind of situation where organizations can make their innovation faster and even reduce the overall cost. Cloud computing is growing day by day, and every type of organization is using this technology for different type of use cases. For example, as mentioned, there are data backup or disaster recovery and email or virtual desktop or software development. So for all these kind of use cases, customers are using cloud computing. Now, I would explain all these terms in more detail as we learn about AWS services so that you could relate to it. Now, next is benefits of cloud computing. So as we saw that millions of customers are using it, and as I mentioned, that cloud computing has lots of benefits like agility, elasticity, pay as you go pricing, which reduces the cost, and scalability. So all of these factors makes a good deal on why we should go for cloud computing. So the first factor is agility. The cloud gives you easy access to a broad range of technologies so that you can innovate faster and build nearly anything that you can imagine. You can quickly spin up resources as you need them, from infrastructure services such as cloud storage or database to IoT, machine learning, data lakes, and analytics, and much more. So as you can see, agility is the flexibility that cloud technology gives you. You can spin up a resource within few seconds. So the cloud gives you the easy access to a broad range of technologies that you can use and innovate your tools and softwares faster. And you can build nearly anything with cloud computing because AI, ML, and IoT, all the technologies are coming to cloud computing, and you can just transform your business. Now, next comes is elasticity. So, elasticity basically means that you don't have to think about how I'm going to scale up my resources, or what if there's a huge demand of resources and how I'm going to get them on time, and how to actually scale it automatically. So with cloud computing, you have that flexibility to scale your resources automatically. You don't have to think about what's going to happen during the peak hours of your business, or what's when you're going to have the maximum number of users to log into your website or using your website. So for all these kind of use cases, cloud sources can scale automatically. And this is a very important benefit of cloud computing because it helps your resources scale automatically. So you don't have to think about or worry about the large number of traffic coming in during peak hours. So as it is written here, with cloud computing, you don't have to over provision resources upfront to handle peak level of business activities in the future. Instead, you provision the amount of resources that you actually need. You can scale these resources up or down to instantly grow and shrink capacity as your business needs. Right. So you don't have to worry about during your peak hours of your business, because cloud resources can scale automatically. You just have to configure them accordingly as per your requirements. Now, next benefit is cost saving. As we all know that cloud computing is pay as you go model. So it allows you to trade capital expense such as data centers and physical servers for variable expenses and only pay for IT as you consume it. Plus, the variable expenses are much lower than what you would pay to do it yourself by the economics of scale. So, right, as I mentioned, that traditionally organizations used to have their own data centers, have their own servers, which used to cost them a huge amount of money. And with cloud computing, they were able to reduce their cost to a drastically low level, and they are innovating faster. They're instead using that money into the development side and the R&D side to grow their business and to grow their organization. So cloud computing is kind of changing the IT world. Now, next is deploy globally in minutes, which means that you can deploy your servers, you can deploy your infrastructure, you can deploy your network devices globally all over the world within minutes. And why it is so? Because the cloud service provider, that is AWS, has its infrastructure all over the world. So you can deploy your application in multiple physical locations without worrying about latency, or without worrying about the distance or how much time it's going to take. It's going to happen very quickly, very easily within minutes. So putting your applications in close proximity to the user end reduces latency and improves the experience, right? So you can just deploy your servers where your user base is more, and where you want your users to have access to the resources faster to reduce the latency. So this is again a very good benefit of cloud computing. So there are three types of cloud computing, as mentioned here: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. There are various other types of cloud computing. However, these are the main ones. Now, each of these cloud computing types have their own benefits. Infrastructure as a service contains the basic building block for cloud IT, which means that it would provide you access to networking features and computers and data storage space. So, for example, in AWS, you can say that EC2 is an IaaS service, right? That is the server, that is the computer that you're going to use. IaaS basically gives you the highest level of flexibility and management control over your IT resources. It is more similar to the existing IT resources with which many IT departments and developers are familiar. So basically, IaaS is you have your own infrastructure in a virtualized way. You can simply put it like that. Now, next is platform as a service. So platform as a service removes the need for you to manage the underlying infrastructure, usually hardware and operating systems, and allows you to focus on the development and management of your applications, which means that you do not have to think about the underlying infrastructure that is deployed. Instead, you would deploy your own software, or you would have to think about your application that you would have to manage, right? So this helps you to be more efficient, as you don't need to worry about the resources, procurement or capacity planning or software maintenance, patching, and any of the other, heavy lifting involved in running your application. One example of platform as a service, you can say Amazon Code Deploy. Now, do not worry, I'll cover all these services one by one in further videos. Now, coming to the third one, that is software as a service. It provides you a complete product that is run and managed by the service provider, which means that you don't have to think about the application also. This is the complete package of all the application, the infrastructure, and the platform combined together and giving it to the user to use. It is like an end user application, and user and the customer has to just understand how that software or the end application works and how to use it efficiently. So basically, customer doesn't have to think about how to manage that underlying infrastructure, or how to manage that software, or how to manage the application. Nothing, they just have to know how to use it. One example of software as a service could be, web-based emails. Now, the last topic is cloud computing deployment models. This is again an important part of cloud computing. So there are three different types of models, that is cloud, hybrid, and on-prem. So first, let's talk about the on-premises model. So on-premises model in general terms that we refer to is the, dedicated resources entity where organizations have their own traditional IT infrastructure. This is kind of, you can say, a traditional or the legacy IT infrastructure that the organizations used to have or still have, and where they deploy their resources, and whether it could be management tools or virtualized resources. On premises deployment doesn't really provide you many benefits of cloud computing. Now let's move to the second model, that is cloud. So as we already learned about it just yet, that cloud computing or cloud-based models are basically the infrastructure or the resources that that are fully deployed in the cloud, and you can scale them, you can create them instantly, you can build your softwares using cloud services. So all these are the benefits of cloud computing, and this is the cloud model. Now, next is hybrid. Hybrid deployment is a way to connect infrastructure and application between the cloud-based and the existing resources that are not located in the cloud. So hybrid is basically the combination of cloud and the on-premises. So for example, an organization can have both the ways, can have some part of infrastructure, or some part of their IT resources in the cloud environment, and some part of their resources in the on premises, that is their own dedicated data centers or their own dedicated infrastructure. Last but not the least, I would like to inform you about Newton School, which is a platform to learn and develop skills like full stack development and help you prepare for your dream company without paying any upfront fees, which means that you do not have to pay for a course until you receive a job offer from a company within 1 year. They will help you to build and structure your tech career for your dream companies all over the world, because they have partnered with 700 plus companies from around the globe, and they will work hard with you until you get one of yours. Their students are already working in big tech companies like Google, Zomato, Nika, and many more. So I would highly recommend you all to check out their website and try their services for free. I will add all the links in the description so that you could go and check out their website. So this was it for this video, and I hope you all like it and understood what is cloud computing and how it is helping organization to grow. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you.